Hello, hello.
Hello, everybody.
Welcome back to Leo and Dave for a new session today. I think it's
Mm,
going to be interesting. So later today we have the
yeah.
Fed,
Yeah.
the Fed decision regarding the rate cut or no. But before that, we want to talk about the suspense about who is going to buy.
Warner
What?
Brothers. And also we there was a magnificent call that we made on Netflix at around 115. We said
You make a good call. You said to
yeah,
sell at 116.
yeah, yeah, and since 116, we made a magnificent call. Netflix is down at 95. We didn't know that all of the news was happening in the background, but this is evidence that just looking at charts and having an understanding of liquidity will make you money in the markets. Magnificent call. Give us a thumbs up. Give us a sub.
Yes, you
Yeah.
did. You say it was a
Mm,
bubble, and it's obvious.
mm.
So yes, we start for Netflix, Paramount, and Warner Bros. I think here I'm sharing.
So what do we got? We got Warner Brothers here.
Yes.
And this is the daily. Goes back to it's only this month.
Mhm.
So yeah, so we don't know
Who
whether
is going to
Warner
buy?
well we don't really know whether Warner Brothers is making money. We don't know why Paramount or Netflix want to buy it. We suspect that this is political. And so it's not about whether the company is making money, it's about influence, soft power, geopolitics. And so Warner Brothers is probably going to pump out some movies that are useful to the government because Donald Trump has stepped in. Now, what has happened is Netflix, this is the basic story. Netflix signed a deal to buy Warner Brothers. And then Donald Trump stepped in and he has some friends, Larry Ellison, the Ellison family, that are it's the second richest family in the world, and Jared Kushner. Uh, both of these guys have got together and with the help of Donald Trump, they've put pressure on this deal with Netflix. And my understanding is that the Ellison family is willing to spend, I think it is around $2.5 billion. It doesn't matter if it's 2.8, 2.5. It's a lot of money to allow Netflix to back out of the deal to buy Warner Brothers. Now, if that is the case, and Donald Trump has used his political power to get involved in this, it is possible that Paramount, with the help of Larry Ellison and Jared Kushner and Donald Trump, they will buy Warner Brothers. They apparently own Paramount already. My understanding is that Larry Ellison has gone on a massive buying spree. He owns TikTok now. I think he owns CBS now. They're going on a media buying spree for some reason in the future, some political reasons. Maybe they want to put someone else as the new president of the United States in the next 4 years or something along those lines. We don't know. But it's important if you're going to be buying and selling stocks to understand what's happening in the background and why, because it's rarely about money. It's rarely about money. And this isn't really about money. This is about influence. So, with that understood, Netflix was making a lot of money and they decided to take that cash. My understanding is uh, take cash out of it to try and pump it into their new acquisition. This is why, also, when you look at Netflix, it just seems like how is Netflix even surviving? I really noticed with all the competition, it's not just it's diluted. There's Prime and there's Hulu and there's a new streaming service coming out every day. How it seems like Blockbuster to me. And anything you can get on Netflix, someone has stolen it and uploaded it to YouTube. you know. And so when I'm looking at that, it's like, how are they even making money? And the other
You
thing I
say
know,
you have the membership. You
one
say
more
you are
thing.
a member.
I have one more thing, and I saw in the store recently that Netflix is selling merch. I saw merch for sale. I saw products for sale in with Netflix branding on it. I should have taken a photo and sent it to you, but I saw it in the store. And this is what Blockbuster did before they collapsed. Blockbuster started selling lollies. They started selling lollies and popcorn. So you'd come in, you would want to buy your VHS or your CD, and then you would buy some snacks because they needed to diversify because they started losing money because the internet was taking all of their share. Now, what I suspect is happening with Netflix is there's too much competition, and so this could be the great short on Netflix moving forward. And you take that money out of Netflix, you start pumping it into movies, and movies seem to be very powerful still. People still, I guess, pay for movies. But anyway, that's
So you
that's
think
kind
it's
of
their
my take on it.
you think it's their last attempt to survive?
Just logically, how are they even alive now? Just logic with all the competition. I've got Netflix on this TV. I don't watch it. I looked up some anime recently because, but the thing is that same anime I can just get on YouTube for free. And if you want to get it creative, there's a whole bunch of websites where you can, it's all pirated, it's free. I know that that's not ethical or whatever, but that's what people do these days. There's a lot of Russian websites and Chinese websites where you can get everything for free. You buy movies on YouTube now, so anyway.
In both cases, so what I understood is Netflix is offering 82 billion for Warner Bros. And Paramount put a bid of 108. If Netflix doesn't get Warner Bros., it will be seen either as they cannot afford, or even if they get it, it will be seen, how to say, they will need to digest it, and it will cost them a lot of money. So, in any case, the price of Netflix is going to decrease.
Well, the way I see it is Netflix is a streaming service, and Warner Brothers is, it's movies, it's total different thing or total different beast altogether. So my take on it is it's kind of like you are running if you remember Periscope, or you remember some of these other websites that went under because they became useless. No one was going to use them anymore. And what you do is, while your company's still alive, you use that cash, and you need to move. You need to innovate fast before your company collapses. And this is, in my opinion, a warning sign that Netflix and that whole industry is too diluted. There's no money in it, and it's about to be finished. And Netflix may be totally gone in the next couple of years, perhaps. That's just my take on it. And so moving into movies, moving into AI or something along those lines, if they can't buy it, but if you think about it, if Paramount is willing to pump another $20 million into it, it must be worth it. Or they're desperate to get out of dying industries. And so if Netflix is finished, they will just buy something else. They will have to, this might be their first choice, but $80 billion can buy you something very nice somewhere else. So they will just go somewhere else. But if you're looking at the stock and you're thinking, when this thing collapses, will it come back? You have to take into account, are the owners of this company going to try to make it come back?
I rarely seen things that technology that collapse to come back. Like, I never seen it in history. Like, I remember in the 2000, like this You know,
Yeah.
this little thing to watch movie, Arco. So there was a lot of, you could kind of not video game, but little screen where you could see movie live, and they collapsed. Like they were fashioned, like the stock price increased 100%, 200%,
Mm.
1,000. But as soon as they were not innovative anymore, they never went back and they disappear.
Yeah, so Netflix is probably on the way out, and so Netflix will probably go back to where it is. Where is that? So this is on the
Daily
this goes
basis.
back to 2022. Where's that the big support there? That mountain back in 2022. What number is that? 70?
The bottom
No,
here.
no, the mountain 70. 2022. This one here. So
68.
68, 70 basically.
Yes. If it
So,
doesn't hold,
we made the
this
call. We made the call. We'll leave the link, the top link in the description, or we'll leave the top pinned comment, the video with the call that we made. At 115, we told you guys, we made the video that it's a bubble. Now we know why it's a bubble. That we've put in a little bit more research. Netflix seems like it's finished, and so Netflix, in my opinion, will go back to 70. And then it might bounce. People might speculate with it, but it might be finished. Netflix might be finished.
It might go back to $20.
So the next point, if you want to play with it, would be 70.
Yes.
And I would say it might go sideways for a bit. It might take 6 months, but I can see us being at 70 in the next 6 months.
It's funny how it went up very fast between April and July, but it's going down at the same speed, like it's doing.
Yeah, that's a bubble. That's
Same
a bubble.
Speed. Yes. The next is here, 70, maybe a little bit up, and then.
It'll be interesting if you get a little bit of a bounce, a little bit of consolidation where it's at, and then
70, 80.
It might go back up to 100 and then bounce around, but you could definitely see it hitting 70 in the next, say,
6 months.
3 to 6 months.
Yeah, 7 years.
Yeah, maybe less. Yeah, it could even be like 3 months. It should be down there. The owners are clearly making a massive acquisition, which is evidence that they don't have faith in their own industry. They would be investing in their own industry and Netflix. They would be buying actors. They would be buying studios. They would be doing something. Maybe AI. Maybe there's a whole bunch of reasons why. If I was owning Netflix, I would be nervous. And so...
And don't forget, many things have been pumped during COVID, where people were at home and just subscribe, but habit change, and it's already 5 years, and people have no interest to go into Netflix anymore. Like it was a fashion thing for a couple of years, and now I don't know anyone that is talking to me about Netflix.
Yeah, although when because I'm basically traveling the world, I always ask for Netflix I make sure I have it. I don't really use it. I don't really watch it. I watched One Punch Man, an anime. I thought that was funny for a little bit. The Blue Eye Samurai, I watched that a little bit, but I'm on YouTube at the moment. This is what you do. Everyone's on YouTube. If I want to watch a movie, I want to find out what's happening in the stock market, I want to hear pundits talking about it, I'm on YouTube. I don't go to movies anymore. I don't want to sit in the cinema.
I wonder if cinemas still make money today.
People still go there. I went to the cinema just to check it out. I did go to the cinema last year. People are still going there. Even in Asia, it's still like it's a thing. People go there. They take their families. They sit down. They get some popcorn. It's just expensive to go there these days. But anyway, we've covered that. And if you guys listen to us at 115, you'd be rich. Now we're going to make you more money because we're going down to 70. The short will continue. So and you know, the stock price on Warner Brothers, I wouldn't play with that. Don't go back to it. We don't need to see it. I wouldn't play with Warner Brothers. I wouldn't play with it because we don't know what's going to happen. If you're going to play with buying or selling Warner Brothers based off with all of the uncertainty,
This is speculation.
You're just gambling, and that would be too dangerous. I would say shorting Netflix from here is still a great, still pretty good. So what do you think? Do you think we covered that enough to move on to the FOMC meeting, or is there anything else you want to cover? Because I would say
I wanted to share something interesting that I found lately. So I wanted to share the Nasdaq, for instance, because last week we covered liquidity, and I found this.
Which Nasdaq are we looking at?
Nasdaq 100, and I saw this indicator, M2 Global Liquidity Index, and I wanted to share it with you. So if we had 70-day lag, yes. So there is a huge correlation between the M2 Global Liquidity Index, which is the global liquidity, and the American stock index, the Nasdaq here. So here I put a lag of 10 weeks, which will correlate with what we say and what you say a few weeks ago, that there is no more room for no more room for going up for the Nasdaq. Like if we see this,
I don't see I don't see it. I don't see how we can use this. This doesn't seem very useful to me at all. I don't see how we can use this to decide where it's going to go next, though. It was going sideways and then it pumped. So the M2 money supply was going sideways and then it pumped. M2, so it pumped. M2.
Where are you looking?
Well, I'm just looking at it. So you could probably just infer from what I'm saying. M2 money supply dumped, and then it did. It was useful.
So here it dumped, and then the index is.
Yeah, let me just finish. Let me just finish what I'm saying first. It dumped, and then afterwards the Nasdaq dumped. So that kind of makes sense. That's April. That's April. That was the April call, the bottom of April. But then what happened was it pumped, and then the M2 money supply lagged. So that's not useful for me at the point where we're at right now. That's not useful at all. Yeah, I don't think that's going to give us. Can you remove the lag? Actually, there is a lag. Yeah, you put a 70-day lag on it, didn't you?
Yes.
That kind of messes with it. Why did you use a lag? I'm curious.
Because I thought to make a better correlation, but.
Oh yeah, we're not trying to make it match. Oh, okay. So M2 money supply pumped, and then can you just move the chart back to where it was so we can see everything? Yeah. So okay. Yeah, so the cash went in, and then it continued up a little bit more, and then it started dumping, and then you could use then you know, the cash stayed in for a little bit more before it started to dump. And then it's funny, at the beginning of 2025, M2 money supply started pumping, and it started pumping for a long time. It started pumping for like 3 months. And then instead of actually correlating and matching, it just dumped. So that seems very dangerous to me. I wouldn't be trust. So what if the M2 money supply pumps here? Is the Nasdaq going to dump for 3 months and we're going to suffer massive losses? So yeah, that seems like something that I can't trust. And it happened in September too. Yeah, it started dumping and then it pumped.
Mm-hmm.
So if M2 money supply pumps here, are we going to get a dump? Is
No,
this
that
like...
is why I put a lag.
No. Oh, I get it. Please don't lag. I'm not after the lag because I want to know when it happens. That the lag is like, those guys that grab a fractal. I get it. You grab a fractal from here, you put it over there just to try to make it pretty. But the thing is, it went in. If we're looking at January 2025,
Mm-hmm.
it started pumping, and
Yes,
then the
yes.
Nasdaq started dumping. Okay, that's more important than making it match.
So it's not well correlated.
Well, it did the opposite, didn't it? Twice there. And if you go back to May 2024, you can see that it was going sideways, and then out of nowhere, the Nasdaq pumped. So to me, it's like, okay, so the Nasdaq pumped, so the M2 money supply pumped really hard, and then the Nasdaq had no choice but to follow it later on. That's not really a correlation. That's not something that's useful to us. If you get a lot of liquidity, everything's going to pump anyway, and that's what everyone wants to know. So I guess look, you can look at it from that point of view. But if M2 money supply started pumping January 2025, Bitcoin was dumping at that time too.
Yes.
So it's a bit of a confusing indicator. Yeah, but anyway, I don't know. Do you find this? How do you find this? Do you find this useful?
No, I think I will pass. I will pass. Let's pass.
Yeah, because if you go back to 2024, it was sideways. It was sideways, yet the Nasdaq was pumping. So we're missing all of that cash. Also, the same thing happened. Go back even to November 2023. November 2023. Where was it? November 23. Yeah. So yeah, you can see there that you go back to May 2023. No, every time you move the chart, I lose it. So you can't keep moving the chart. May, July 2024, M2 money supply was going sideways, and then the Nasdaq pumped. And then it's almost like only because the Nasdaq pumped, M2 money supply decided to follow it. So it's not like looking at Tether market cap, knowing that people are buying Tether and then they're going to launch it. This is, we don't know where they're putting the cash. Then there has to be something else. The cash has to be stored somewhere else before it reaches here, because this doesn't make any sense. And I'm sure the people on the inside know, and they're not telling us. But this doesn't look, just because one goes up and the other one goes up, I could overlay every stock that's gone up over the last couple of years, and I could put everything there, and it's like stock number go up, good correlation. See, it's like that's not going to help us. You're just going to get broke over the last 3 years trying to chase that. Yeah, if that's is that really the M2 money supply?
Yeah, it's called M2 Global Liquidity Index.
Yeah, okay. 2023, it pumped hard. The end of 2022, it pumped hard, and the Nasdaq did nothing.
I will try to find something else. or better at least.
Yeah, I guess what we're gonna try to find out with the S&P, the Nasdaq, the Dow Jones, what we just did was we hit sort of like a peak, and then we dumped a little bit over the last couple of months, and now we're back up to where we were. We got the rate cut decision today. Are we going to pump from here, or are we going to go sideways and start grinding down? Now, the amount of money that they are going to print, this is just, let's just step back and just get a big picture of what's really going on. They're going to dilute the US dollar. You know, they're in so much debt. And so while they're diluting the US dollar just to kick the can down the road, people are making big moves, and there's a lot of money leaving the United States. There's a lot of infrastructure. There's a lot of tech leaving the United States.
Why?
I won't mention where they're going right now. I'll tell you off camera, but you can see where they're going, and we know where they're going, and they're leaving America. It seems like they're going to forsake America and leave the debt with the American people. Maybe austerity in the next 10 years will hit them hard. I think we got a good pump. You know, maybe we'll have a bit of a grind down over the next 12 months. I think we'll have another pump in the next, you know, we'll have maybe one more big bubble that they'll pop. I don't know. Some people think
you mean
that
they don't want to pay the taxes? Like tax going to increase and they don't want to be there, and
it's hard to say. People are buying, you know, what is, you know, people talk about people buying gold, people talk about all this other stuff, but it really is a bit of a confusing way to look at it. I think the most important thing is who controls the money flows, who controls the trade system, like as in you're manufacturing something, who's going to buy it and in what currency? Who's controlling that? That's more important than a lot of the other airy-fairy things that most analysts talk about. And we know where that's going. Britain is collapsing. What is happening in Britain is a tragedy. As someone with a British background, looking at my the motherland collapse in front of my eyes is very sad. As a Frenchman, are you happy? Are you happy the British Empire is collapsing finally? But I'm looking at it, and City of London and their control over the currencies and the money flows is weakening, and you can see it in real time. You can see it, and that the power center is going to leave London, and I think it's going to leave in the next couple of years. And they're doing it right now. They're moving it right now. I think I know where they're moving it.
it's already the case. Like business are leaving the UK, so it's not.
Yeah, but it's not just business. It's you see, the people who run it, they don't run the businesses. They don't need to. They run the cash. They run where the finance flows. Running that is more important than being good at any sort of business, because then you get to steal cash from the productivity of others. That's moving somewhere else. And so that is moving somewhere else. And we can discuss that in another video. We'll discuss whether we want to have that discussion. But my understanding is that China's still the factory. Cash is coming out. Cash is getting skimmed off China's hard work. And there's going to be a new financial system set in place. I think I know where that's going to be. I can tell you off camera. And then that cash is going to start flowing into Russia. I think there's some banks being set up in Russia right now. So I'm looking at that. I'm looking at the cash that's flowing around into buying media organizations with Larry Ellison, Warner Brothers, there's something big happening, and we can kind of infer what it is. And so we're hoping to make some money out of that. That's what we're trying to figure out. It's not just holding gold like everybody else out there that's going, oh, just buy gold. Gold go up when things bad.
Silver is going up. Silver is going up.
Yeah. Are we going to check out? You got the video for
Jerome
Jerome Powell?
You want to have a try? Let's try it. Give me 1 second.
I think it'll be fun just to listen to his attitude and try to, what people do, they watch Jerome Powell and then we listen to him talk and we try to figure out.
Let's try to invite Jerome Powell to our meeting.
Is he bullish? Is he bullish or is he bearish? Are we going to pump or not? And we try to look at his mood. I can't see it. I can only see you and me.
Ideas, but we're going to look at those with staff briefing and a lot of thought in the fall. And I would say when it comes to changing communications,
where is this?
I would only support things really that implement things that have very broad support.
Maybe go back to the beginning,
because I think our communications are pretty well received. They're not broken, so more is not necessarily better, but better is better. So we're going to be looking at ways to do.
Yeah.
We have actually moved back down, although still at an elevated level. So we're adapting in real time.
Like right to the very beginning. Yeah, right to the very beginning. Let's see what's.
We're doing a careful scrub of the board and all the reserve banks, and we're going to find 10% of employees who can do something else, where we can streamline our operations, and we think we can get there in a couple of years. We think we can do that. And we think this is without taking risk to carrying out our critical missions. So this is something
today,
you do
though?
Carefully, thoughtfully, and you do it again, respecting that we have critical missions.
Is it really live?
I've had a lot of experience in my prior careers, with headcount reductions and things like that. And this is how you do it professionally. You do it carefully, thoughtfully, with a lot of planning. And you do it over a period of time. I think the Fed will be fine. I think no one will notice any decline in our ability to carry out our missions. And I think it's just us wanting to demonstrate to the public that we are actually good stewards of their resources. We're effectively wiping out 10 years of headcount growth with this. So, I mean, we wanted to show that, that we're good stewards.
How is progress on reducing headcount going so far? Are you on track to meet the goal?
We're just at the very beginning. As you know, we're doing a buyout program. We're gonna hit that goal.
It's now in the newspapers saying that the U.S. economy and the global economy is going through this profound change, akin to the end of the Bretton Woods era in the 1970s. And don't you owe the American people some sort of explanation for what we're going through? I mean, I noticed earlier this month when you talked about Bretton Woods a little bit.
No, he's going to answer.
Bretton Woods, the Fed staff,
this is a good question.
The dollar movements for the dollar wasn't.
Yeah, pause it.
Are we going through some?
I think it's exactly what you were talking about. Bretton Woods, end of Bretton Woods, where we are going.
He's like, look at his face, and the people behind him, the guy's filming it. He's like, "That's a good question. We're gonna find out." So Jerome,
tell us the truth.
What is happening? Because I'm confused.
My dollar is worth nothing. Why?
He's like, I bought Netflix
like that
at the top.
That are you having to change how you do monetary policy? Is it that fundamental a change underway? Thanks.
It's certainly a time of real change. From a geopolitical standpoint, from a trade standpoint, from an immigration standpoint. You see this not just here but everywhere. So there's quite a lot going on. It doesn't change the way we do monetary.
I like this type of answer. There is obviously something, but there is not something like it's not going to change. They always say that it's not going to change.
He said geopolitical and immigration. Who mentions immigration at a Fed meeting? Unless what he's basically saying is some countries have had too many immigrants and those countries are going to die, and then the capital flows are going to other countries. This is why I think Russia's going to get rich. Maybe Poland,
Policy
but I
in the
don't
near
think
term.
so.
I mean, but and it doesn't change our objectives or what we need to
It
do.
doesn't
And
change
you know,
anything.
these things are not really our issues. They're really
there is
issues
no
for
issue.
elected governments. All of those
Look
issues
this
are
place,
really
look
for
this
elected
place.
governments. But there's no question it's a time of real change, and very hard to see where that goes. You know, will it be? There have been many things written about how it's going to be a more inflationary time. That's possible. It's not guaranteed.
Oh, there's going to be more inflation. Oh, that's possible, but no guarantee. Very positive.
You know, AI could cut in the very other direction. AI could make people much more productive, and
AI can make people more productive. AI is taking the job of the people. It's not making them more productive.
push in the other direction. I don't know though. So both housing services and non-housing services have really been grinding down toward levels that are consistent with 2% inflation. So that's the good news. We've had goods inflation just moving up a bit, and of course we expect, as you point out, we do expect to see more of that over the course of the summer. It takes some time for tariffs to work their way through the chain of distribution to the end consumer. A good example of that would be goods being sold at retailers today may have been imported several months ago before tariffs were imposed. So we're beginning to see some effects, and we do expect to see more of them over coming months. We do also see price increases in some of the relevant categories like personal computers and audiovisual equipment and things like that that are attributable to tariff increases. In addition, we look at surveys of businesses, and there are many of those, and you do see a range of things, but many companies do expect to put all or some or all of the effective tariffs through to the next person in the chain, and ultimately to the consumer. Today, you know, the amount of the tariff effects, the size of the tariff effects, their duration and the time it will take are all highly uncertain. So that is why we think the appropriate thing to do is to hold where we are as we learn more.
I can progress.
So have we had the decision yet? I haven't Googled it.
I think it's in 1 hour or 2 hours. I don't know.
Okay. Well, we do know that the result is a rate cut anyway, don't we? It's
Yes,
like
90%. But
yeah.
But it's going to be the last one, because they say after they're going to put in pause any, I wouldn't be any more cut for a while. So.
Okay. Yeah. And he just said that inflation, food inflation and other products are going to become more expensive in June, July, August, because there's a lag with the tariffs. And the thing is, inflation's already bad enough, and they just had Christmas. Christmas, we're going into Christmas now. People are going to start shopping and spending a lot of money, and that's going to probably chew up what is left. So whatever tariffs should hit the stores faster than June, July, August. Inflation should, yeah. So maybe you're right. Maybe it's the last cut. Maybe you're right. Yeah.
And you share with me they postponed to next year the PPI result.
Oh yes, yeah. So they also did that. Yeah, they delayed all of the
because PPI is an indicator as well. When PPI goes up, then it means
they delayed it till January because they wanted to hide it, I guess, to try and suck more people into the stock market. That's a big warning sign. But the thing is, the money printing, this is just going to go up at this point. You know, it's only going to go up from here. It doesn't make sense that it doesn't make sense that it wouldn't. But I guess what we're trying to do now is, if there's a bit of a pullback, try to get in on that pullback before things blast off again. And we're kind of hoping for a bigger pullback. That's my take on it at the moment. But anyway, let's just listen to it. Let it play, and you can put it on. You
I
can
will
put it on.
advance a little bit first because we're still far off the.
No. Don't skip. Yeah, you can go like 1.25 or whatever speed. Yeah, something like that.
And we think our policy stance is in a good place where we're well positioned to react to incoming
Too
developments.
fast.
In terms of how we
A little bit too fast. Yeah.
should interpret the rate cuts penciled into the SEP? Is this reflecting that there's this expectation that underlying inflation will just stay well enough contained that allows the committee to eventually move ahead with those cuts? Or is it about responding to a deterioration in economic activity, let's say? I mean, how should we make sense of the forecast?
So if you look at the forecast, you will see that people do generally expect inflation to move up and then come back down. But we can't just assume that. Of course, we don't know that. And our job is to make sure, one of our jobs is to make sure that a one-time increase in inflation doesn't turn into an inflation problem. And that, again, that will depend on the size of the effects, how long it takes for them to come in, and ultimately on keeping inflation expectations anchored.
This, you think, is the consequence of the tariff, the rise of the inflation over there?
I still think that COVID is affecting the economy today. I think COVID is affecting the stock price as well. And I don't think we've fully recovered from that at all. This is where a lot of the inflation is still coming in. But yeah, obviously the tariffs can't necessarily be helping. I just don't like hearing the Fed chair blaming tariffs all day long. I just don't like hearing that. It sounds like an excuse to me.
And why you think we didn't recover of COVID? In which way?
Well, the amount of money that they spent, the amount of debt that they went into, and then Russia taking exploiting it at the perfect time. And so the last tightening phase that we went through up until now, where that cash didn't go to save the economy and keep inflation down, it was made worse by Ukraine because we spent not only assets, but sent a lot of cash there, which has put the United States in a massive problem. And Western Europe is almost finished because of that.
So you think with the debt of COVID plus the cash sent to Ukraine and the rise of the interest rate during this period make the economy
Yeah, okay, so simplistically, just when they went into tightening, Russia invading Ukraine forced Western Europe into getting into debt while the interest rates were too high. And so if they were able to do it, get into debt at a lower rate, they would have more cash. But instead, so now they're in a situation where they've started to cut some rates, cut the rate, and now they can get into debt now and try to fix it. But the thing is, even the biggest economy in the world and the alliance system, the amount of money that they've spent is now so inflationary and so painful right now that it could spell partially the end of the United States. And that's why a lot of people in the United States are moving, and this is also why the financial center of London is moving as well. I think Russia invading, so it's COVID one, and then Russia invading and sucking them into debt at such high interest rates and locking them in for such a long time. And now what they've been doing is
why they didn't have interest to win fast the Russian. They had to bring them for a long time into the war to make them into debt and
yes. Yeah, and so this is the geopolitical thing that he mentioned. And so they're getting on this short-term debt at high interest rates just to survive at the moment, hoping to get the interest rate down so they can borrow more. And that situation is not going to get any better because now Western Europe is in so much debt that if they decide, if the war ends tomorrow, then France, Germany, and Britain will go into austerity for the next 20, 30 years to pay it off, and maybe longer, and they will never pay it off. So what they're going to do is they're going to roll the dice, and they're going to double down, and they're going to double the debt to because, and then that debt will be backed by the lives of the people living in those countries. That's why they've got conscription happening, and they're importing a lot of men as immigrants because they're going to send them to the front line and say, look, that's how you get your citizenship.
Should I invite you to geopolitics talk?
Huh?
Jerome Powell and I shouldn't invite you to geopolitics call because that's your specialty. That's your specialty. And
but it makes sense, doesn't it? Because it's directly connected to this. Yeah.
If you spend billion on not on your economy but on someone else, of course you're going to be short of money. It's common sense.
Yeah, and now they're in debt. They need to win this war somehow, and it's not just taking Ukraine. They actually need to take Russia to pay back this debt. They actually need to defeat Russia somehow. And so what they're going to be doing is they're basically going to go into mega debt and roll the dice. But I think they're going to lose. And this is why the financial system is going to break, and London's going to move somewhere else. And it's going to move somewhere safe with no immigrants right now. And I'll tell you off camera who that is, but we can't really talk about these people. And that's what's happening. But anyway, let's just listen to Jerome Powell talk. And do you think Jerome Powell is bullish or bearish?
He looks like he's so exhausted.
Is this how we're going to pick our stocks?
And thanks, Chairman Howard Schneider with Reuters. If you look at the rate path starting in December to today and adjusted over the full time horizon you've got there, you've taken about a quarter point per year out of your projected path, and you ended a higher rate at in 2027 than you would have in the prior forecast. Is that a result of a sense that tariffs will lead to more persistent inflation? Is it a result of reassessments of where your short-term neutral rate is? Why are you on a slower path now?
So I would focus most on the nearer term. As you get out to the later years, it's hard for anybody to know where the economy is going. You didn't see people moving their longer term, estimate of the neutral rate, for example, at this meeting. So and those things are probably slow moving. So I think if you look at what's happening here since March, this is since March, right? You see a little slower growth, just a tiny tick up, a 1/10 tick up in unemployment, and you see inflation moving up 0.3. And by the way, it was a similar move from the December SEP to the March. So that's what you see. You see the effects of tariffs. I think we learned in April after the March meeting that substantially higher tariffs were likely. And then since then, the estimates of where the tariffs will be have actually moved back down, although still at an elevated level. So we're adapting in real time. And what you see is an accumulation of individual assessments.
You say in the statement that risks have diminished on that front, but the July 9th, drop dead date for all the Liberation Day tariffs is still out there and unresolved. You've got now exchange of missiles between two Middle East adversaries with a possible U.S. involvement. How can you justify saying that risks have diminished?
So what we said was that uncertainty uncertainty about the economic outlook has diminished, but remains elevated. Many surveys say that they do. So and that's actually a line from the Teal book, which you can see in 5 years. Remember to check that.
Maybe the world will be.
No, but if you think about it, tariff uncertainty really peaked in April, and since then has come down.
He doesn't agree with you. The problem is uncertainty.
Okay.
And that's really what that's just acknowledging. It's diminished, but still elevated. It's uncertainty. So I think that's an accurate statement.
Thank you. Chris Rugaber, Associated Press. There is an argument out there in favor of cutting rates more immediately. Inflation has continued to cool and is back to roughly 2% despite the tariffs. And I guess I also wanted to ask about cracks in the job market with gross hiring slowing, concentrated in just a few industries. We've seen some housing data, including this morning, that have been pretty weak. Do you see any concerns that the economy is weakening and that is a reason to cut rates going forward?
So we do of course monitor all those things. I think if you look at the overall picture, what you're seeing is 4.2% unemployment and an economy that's growing at a rate hard to know given the unusual flows in the first quarter, but it appears to be 1.5%, 2%, maybe a little better than that. Sentiment has come up off of its very low levels. It's still depressed. So you can point to things. The housing market is a longer run problem and also a short run problem. I don't think it's indicative of basically the situation is we have a longer run shortage of housing, and we also have high rates right now. I think the best thing we can do for the housing market is to restore price stability in a sustainable way and create a strong labor market, and that's the best thing we can do for the housing market. You asked about the job market. Again, look at labor force participation, look at wages, look at job creation. They're all at healthy levels now. I would say you can see perhaps a very, very slow continued cooling, but nothing that's troubling at this time. But we watch it very, very carefully. So overall, again, the current stance of monetary policy leaves us well positioned to respond in a timely way to economic developments, and for now, and we'll be watching the data carefully.
Well, just quickly on, given that there are concerns inflation will rise, but there is
All good. All good. Employment is good. Everything is going on the right way.
Yeah. Well, I'm pretty sure he's the same person that said that inflation is transitory during COVID. So, look, does that mean that the S&P is going to pump? I'm not so sure.
But economy is not always correlated to the finance. The finance always collapse before the economy. So the finance used to be like more an indicator when the stock market collapsed after the economy collapsed. It's rarely because the unemployment rate is going up than the stock market is crashing. Because first, most of the big firms in the US are making money abroad, so they don't care that there is a huge unemployment in the US.
All right. Let's hear some more.
the alternate scenario that tariffs would create demand destruction and slow growth sufficiently, and that would perhaps keep a bit of a lid on inflation. Do you see odds of that scenario? What kind of odds do you see of that scenario coming true? And how many months of cool inflation would you need to see before concluding that maybe that lower inflation scenario is taking place?
So this is very much the conversation we had today and yesterday. There are many, many different scenarios, many combinations of scenarios where inflation does or doesn't prove out to be at the levels we think, and where the labor market does or doesn't soften. And I think what you see people doing is looking ahead at a time of very high uncertainty and writing down what they think the most likely case is. No one holds these rate paths with a great deal of conviction, and everyone would agree that they're all going to be data dependent, and that you can make a case for any of the rate paths, I think, that you see in the SEP. And, we do this once a quarter. It's a hard thing to do particularly at this time, but it does reflect, if you see somebody writing down, a rate path that involves cuts, that's them saying, yes, I think we will get to a place more likely than not where cuts will be appropriate. And it could be a joint probability of a number of possible outcomes. Again, remember how much uncertainty we face, though.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, I wonder if you could describe for us some of those scenarios. How do you get to a place? I'm noticing that the uncertainty levels in your forecast are very high. How do you get to a place where you have the confidence in the outlook for, say, inflation and or growth or the unemployment rate? How many months does it take, and what do you want to see in the data to get to that level of confidence to actually reduce rates off the restrictive level?
So it's very, very hard to say when that will happen. We know that the time will come. It could come quickly. It could not come quickly. As long as the economy is solid, though, as long as we're seeing the kind of labor market that we have and reasonably decent growth and inflation moving down, we feel like the right thing to do is to be where we are, where our policy stance is, and just learn more. And in particular, we feel like we're going to learn a great deal more over the summer on tariffs. We hadn't expected them to show up much by now, and they haven't. And we will see whether, to the extent to which they do over coming months. And I think that's going to inform our thinking, for one thing. In addition, we'll see how the labor market progresses. So at some point, it will become clear. I can't tell you exactly when that will be. And meanwhile, we'll be watching the labor market very carefully for signs of weakness and strength, and tariffs for signs of what's going to happen there. And of course, there are many developments ahead. Even in the near term, developments are expected on tariffs. So I think we don't yet know with any confidence where they will settle out. We have an estimate, and I think all estimates are now pretty close together, but it's highly uncertain.
When you say estimate of the impact of tariffs on the core PCE, is that what it is? And could you share that?
Yeah, what you start with is what's the effective tariff rate overall, and people are managing to that. But the pass-through of tariffs to consumer price inflation is a whole process that's very uncertain. As you know, there are many parties in that chain. There's the manufacturer, the exporter, the importer, the retailer, and the consumer. And each one of those is going to be trying not to be the one to pay for the tariff. But together, they will all pay for it together, or maybe one party will pay it all. But that process is very hard to predict. And we haven't been through a situation like this. And I think we have to be humble about our ability to forecast it. So that's why we need to see some actual data just to make better decisions. We'd like to get some more data. And again, in the meantime, we can do that because
So he's telling he doesn't know yet the consequence of the tariff. Is that what he's telling?
Yeah, he just said there's a lot of uncertainty. So we already kind of know that, but I don't think there's anything that we can comment on. Let's just try to listen, and unless you got something important to add to this.
I'm going to progress a little bit because we are just at the start of this video.
But hang on, we don't know this. This is interesting as it is. Like, okay. This might be the most important part. We don't know, so we just.
The economy remains in solid condition.
Nick Tamarosa, the Wall Street Journal. Chair Powell, I guess I'm wondering if you could explain a little bit more the divergence we see in the dot plot, particularly around the 2025 rate projections. I realize this is, you have one group of officials that are putting down no cuts, another that are putting down more than one. And again, recognizing that could be difficult to summarize, but is it a matter of people having a different outlook or a different reaction function, a different commitment to defending against another inflation mistake? How did that play out over the last 2 days?
So you're right. This is often the case. We have a pretty healthy diversity of views on the committee. We did have strong support for today's decision and broad agreement that our policy stance does leave us in a good place. But I would point to two factors, and you mentioned them. The first is just that parties have a diversity of forecasts, and they do align with where their dots are. So if you have a higher inflation forecast, you're going to be less likely to be writing down, more cuts. But remember, as we see more data, we're going to learn more about where inflation is headed, and that means when it is time to look at resuming our normalization process, the differences you see should be smaller because we'll have seen actual data. Right now, it's just a forecast in a very foggy time. So that's the first part, is forecast. Secondly, people can look at the same data and they can evaluate the risks differently, as you know. And that includes, the risk of higher inflation, the risk that it'll be more persistent, the risk that the labor market will weaken. People are going to have different assessments of that risk. So that you put that in there too. So those are the two ways that the two things I think that drive these things. Remember, though, as I mentioned earlier, with uncertainty as elevated as it is, no one holds these rate paths with a lot of conviction. So that's really where it is. It's a function of those things. And I think as the data come in, you should see those differences diminish.
If I could follow, you've said the policy is in a good place and that it's modestly restrictive. Given all the uncertainty you just talked about, tariff levels, uncertainty around the pass-through, is it price increases versus margin compression, some of the softness that Chris talked about in labor and housing, why wouldn't it be better to have rates at a more neutral setting as the economy heads into this period of very high uncertainty?
So if you just look backward at the data, that's what you would say, but that's not. We have to be forward-looking. And the thing that every outside forecaster, and the Fed is saying is that we expect a meaningful amount of inflation to arrive in coming months. And we have to take that into account. So I think a backward-looking look would lead you to a neutral stance, but we can't. We have to look at that, and because the economy is still solid, we can take the time to actually see what's going to happen. There's a range of possibilities on how large the inflation effects and the other effects are going to be. So we'll make smarter and better decisions if we just wait a couple of months or however long it takes to get a sense of really what is going to be the pass-through of inflation and what's going to be the effects on spending and on hiring and all those things.
Michael McKee from Bloomberg Radio and Television. Your friend down at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue continues to lob insults in your direction. And I'm wondering, given now that the Supreme Court has maybe carved out the Fed from some of the legal implications of that, whether this is just noise that the markets and everybody should ignore until your term is up, or whether you worry that it could lead to more pressure on confidence on Wall Street, on consumers about the outlook for the economy.
Okay. From my standpoint, it's not complicated. What everyone on the FOMC wants is a good, solid American economy with strong labor market and price stability. That's what we want. We think our policy is well positioned right now to deliver that and to be able to respond in a timely way as the data lead us around. The economy's been resilient, and part of that is our stance. And again, we think we're in a good place on that to respond to significant economic developments. That's what matters. That is what matters to us. Pretty much that's all that matters to us.
I need to ask, assuming you are not reappointed, would you stay on as governor when your term as chair ends?
I'm not thinking about that. I'm thinking about this.
Andrew.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I guess with workplace raids increasing, picking up significantly, what kind of effect would that have on the labor market?
Sorry, with what picking up?
Workplace raids.
So you're asking immigration?
Yeah.
You know, I wouldn't want to speculate. One way to get at that from an economic standpoint, we of course don't comment on immigration policy. It's not ours to make or comment on. But what you see is an unemployment rate that has been really solid and at a low level, not really increasing. It's been in a good range and well within the range of mainstream estimates of maximum employment. And that means, like, part of that is that labor demand and labor supply are kind of moving down at the same rate. Labor demand is softening. You see that in job creation, but it's still kind of at a healthy level. And labor supply is diminishing because the immigration numbers that we see are much lower than they were. So those two factors, supply and demand, that's what has kept the unemployment rate in a reasonably stable place.
Okay, thanks. The other thing I wanted to follow up on is if you could elaborate on the potential changes to the SEP that you suggested were part of the framework review, I think.
So the framework review really has two tracks, right? The first track is our policy framework that is reflected in the consensus statement. And we've said that we would finish that and announce it by the end of the summer. So we're well along in that process. We've had the meetings that we need to have, and we're now going to be going into, into discussions about, specific changes to language. So that's the framework part of it. The second part of it is our communications tools and practices. Pardon me. And that part comes next. Okay, that's what we're going to do in the meetings this fall. Actually, what we did at this meeting, though, is we sort of prepared the ground for that. We had a meeting where we talked at a high level about a number of ideas. The SEP is part of it. Many other ideas. It's sort of, how do we think our communications can be improved? There are a number of ideas. People offered a really, it was a great conversation, number of ideas, but we're going to look at those with staff briefing and a lot of thought in the fall. And I would say when it comes to changing communications, I would only support things really only implement things that have very broad support. And also you want to be really careful because I think our communications are pretty well received. They're not broken. So more is not necessarily better, but better is better. So we're going to be looking at ways to do things that will improve the clarity of what we do for the benefit of the public.
Thanks, Chair
That's so
Powell. Kelly O'Grady,
confusing.
CBS News. You're famously known as the guy that makes.
Oh, it's like they're having high-level meetings about their communication. What, to distract us, to confuse us? Anyway, sorry, just continue the video. Yeah,
I don't think they're gonna share a secret on this type of meeting.
Yeah.
Makes decision based on data instead of speculation. You said today the inflation data is in a good place. We don't know how tariffs are going to impact prices going forward. That's uncertain. But I've got to go back to the last time that you cut rates in December, and there was still the what if of tariffs. So what made you feel comfortable cutting then when inflation was higher than where it is today and you didn't cut today?
Well, the forecast for inflation in December was 2.5%. Core PCE for 2025, the forecast was 2.5%, which was a good inflation forecast. I think what we've learned is that, and this was long before we had any idea of what the actual policies would be, we've learned that tariffs are going to be substantially larger than forecasters generally thought. And our forecasts are generally not particularly different from those of other well-resourced forecasting operations. So what we learned, and particularly in April, was that very substantially larger tariffs were coming, and that would mean higher inflation. That's what happened. And so you saw 2.5% forecast in December, you saw 2.8% in March, and you see 3.1% now. So it's 0.6 higher inflation for 2025, and that's a big part of the change, and that's due to the effects of the tariffs that are, we don't know where they're going to land, but it's pretty apparent they're going to land higher than outside forecasters were really guessing at the end of last year.
My follow-up to that, I think consumers, right, we're looking for relief on rates when it comes to mortgages, car loans. Small businesses want to take out more manageable loans. When you look at the cumulative inflation over the past 5 years, prices have risen over 20%. It's been a rough road. So what is the tipping point then for the wait and see approach in terms of how much it's going to help versus when it hurts the American consumer?
20%.
Well, we're trying to restore price. The best thing we can do for the public that we serve is restore price stability. If we can, and we will, restore price stability, meaning 2% inflation on a durable, sustainable basis. That, and also maximum employment. If we restore those things, that's the best thing. That is our goal. The best thing we can do for the American people. For
that's important. She said that she said things have increased in price 20%. Obviously, not everything. There's a basket of goods. It depends on what she was talking about specifically, but she said 20%. And he agreed with her and said, we are going to restore price stability back to 2%. That means that what that means is that I think you're right. This will be the last rate cut, and then everything will change. This is why they've delayed the inflation results. I doubt we're going to get a big shock and they're going to hold rates. But if they cut rates, it could be devastating for inflation. And then from then on, they're going to have to be very careful what happens, because 2026 could be terrible. And
but then they will have to increase again rate, like to do the opposite.
Well,
and they're going to their economy.
They would hold it. They would hold it and then scare the market first. You know, they're not going to do it straight away. They would hold rates for probably most of next year, scare everybody as much as possible, say inflation's too high. Inflation's too high, then the stock market takes a bit of a tumble. We buy in at the bottom next year. Then interest rates start increasing, inflation slows down, it becomes transitory again. And anyway, I think that might have been what we're looking for. But yeah, unless you got something to add, we can keep watching.
Households and businesses, that is the ultimate thing that we can deliver. And they can make their decisions without having to think about inflation all the time. So in the meantime, we have to keep rates high to get inflation all the way down. They're not very high, let's be honest. I would say policy is modestly or moderately, probably modestly now restrictive. If you look at the economy, it's not performing as though it were performing under very strict monetary policy, very restrictive monetary policy. So I would say probably modestly restrictive. And so what it will take is confidence that inflation is coming down. Now I would say without tariffs, that confidence would be building, because if you see what's happening with non-housing services and housing services, which are the other two big pieces other than goods, those are coming down really nicely now. So I think we have to learn a little more about tariffs. I don't know what the right way for us to react will be. I think it's hard to know with any confidence how we should react until we.
It doesn't give a good confidence by talking that he doesn't know what's going on, like with regarding the tariff consequence. Is very.
Well, they don't really know what's going on.
Yes, but it's not nice to hide behind it for half an hour. Like you have specialists, you have experts in economy, statistic, forecasting, and you say, I don't know what's going to happen. So it looks like Trump didn't know what's going to happen. Like he's putting all the fault on Trump.
Yeah, and he's blaming the tariffs. Yeah, exactly. That's what I was saying before. It's like he's, I don't know why he needs to blame anyone, but that's why communication was what they were meeting on. But anyway,
I don't know. He's not. I don't feel safe to be around him.
You're not safe. You are not safe. I think the market is going to dump.
Really the size of the effects, and then we can start to make a better judgment. So that's what we're doing, and I think we can take the time to do that, because unemployment is 4.2%. Wages are moving up. Real wages are moving up at a healthy clip now, and inflation is 2.3% headline inflation over a 12-month basis. So it's a good economy and a solid economy with decent growth.
When you say 10 times it's a good economy, it doesn't make me feel good.
So you're saying that uncertainty has come down, the economy is moving at a solid pace, inflation has come down over the past 3 months, and this is all moving in the right direction. So are you indicating here that Americans should expect some sort of economic pain in the second half of the year?
No.
I'm not saying that at all. From our standpoint, what I can say is that the U.S. economy is in solid shape. Inflation has come down. Unemployment rate remains at 4.2%. As I mentioned, real wages are moving up. It's a good job creation is at a healthy level. Unemployment, again, as I said, low. Labor force participation in a good place. So, and what we're waiting for to reduce rates is to understand what will happen with really the tariff inflation. And there's a lot of uncertainty about that. every forecaster you can name who.
Are we on the right live video of Jerome Powell?
Well, I hope so. I hope it's not like last time.
Let me try to. Give me a minute. Or maybe it was the yesterday video. Let me double check.
Look, if as long as it's recent, as in like today or yesterday, then we can still hear what he has to say. We get get some questions, have a little bit of a listen.
Let me check. Yes, he's dressed the same. There is this other video.
Can we listen to it?
Yes,
because we gotta wrap this up soon, but it'd be good to just hear a little bit more of what he's saying.
One second.
Yeah, and then so are you changing video?
Yes, to make sure it's the right one, but I just double check.
And that's due to the effects of the tariffs that are, we don't know where they're going to land, but it's pretty apparent they're going to land higher than outside forecasters were really guessing at the end of last year.
My follow-up to that, I think consumers, right, we're looking for relief.
Fine, he was the good one. Okay, so give me 1 second. I wanted to be sure because with all this scam online. Up. Screen up. Okay.
And with adequate resources and forecasts for a living is forecasting pretty significant. Everyone that I know is forecasting a meaningful increase in inflation in coming months from tariffs because someone has to pay for the tariffs, and it will be someone in that chain that I mentioned between the manufacturer, the export, the importer, the retailer, ultimately somebody putting it into a good of some kind, or just the consumer buying it. And all through that chain, people will be trying not to be the ones who pick up the cost, but ultimately the cost of the tariff has to be paid, and some of it will fall on the end consumer. We know that because.
I progress a little bit.
Thank you. I'm Aaron Mokley with Bloomberg. Chair Powell, in February, you told Congress that the Fed is, quote, overworked, maybe not overstaffed. Then in a memo to staff in May announcing a deferred resignation program at the Fed, you said you wanted to ensure that the Fed was, quote, right-sized. Those two statements appear to be at odds with one another. Could you explain what changed in the roughly 3 months between those statements that made you decide that staff levels at the Fed should decline?
I progress a little bit.
Yeah, so we don't sit around and debate or really discuss. We take fiscal policy as fully exogenous.
Is that affecting at all who you're consulting with?
Not at all. Not in any way.
Yeah.
Thank you. Chair Powell, Matt Egan from CNN. Relatively low gas prices this year have helped drive down inflation in recent reports, but that trend is starting to reverse given the crisis in the Middle East. How are you thinking about how the Israel-Iran conflict will impact the economy, especially inflation, and what lessons were learned during the 2022
guy picking his nose?
Conflict, the Russia-Ukraine war sent oil and gas prices skyrocketing?
The guy behind him just picked his nose and ate it.
What's going on? I really don't have any comment on that. Possible that we'll see higher energy prices. What's tended to happen is
can you go
when
back?
there's turmoil in the Middle East, you may see a spike in energy prices, but it tends to come down.
Just just go back 1 minute. No, don't do that. Just go back like 1 minute from where we were. Not that far. Oh, jeez, dude. Just go back to the guy. Go to the beginning of that.
Thank you. Chair Powell, Matt Egan from CNN. Relatively low gas prices this year have helped drive down inflation in recent reports, but that trend is starting to reverse given the crisis in the Middle East. How are you thinking about how the Israel-Iran conflict will impact the economy, especially inflation? And what lessons were learned during the 2022 period when another conflict, the Russia-Ukraine war, sent oil and gas prices skyrocketing?
So, of course, we're watching, like everybody else is, what's going on. I really don't have any comment on that. Possible that we'll see higher energy prices. What's tended to happen is when there's turmoil in the Middle East, you may see a spike in energy prices, but it tends to come down. Those things don't generally tend to have lasting effects on inflation, although, of course, in the 1970s, they famously did, because you had a series of very, very large shocks. But we haven't seen anything like that now. The U.S. economy is far less dependent on foreign oil than it was back in the 1970s. So, but yeah.
A quick follow-up. I just got to ask you about artificial intelligence. Some technology executives have recently been warning that AI could wipe out a large chunk of entry-level jobs and significantly increase the unemployment rate. I'm wondering how concerned you are, if at all, about the threat that AI poses to employment.
So this is the question. Question really is, will AI be more augmenting labor or replacing labor? And I wouldn't. We all see those announcements, including one today. I wouldn't, overread a couple of data points, because AI should be creating jobs at the same time. It may be replacing, maybe doing both. Anyone who's done any work with AI will have been a little bit stunned at how capable it is, and it's just a different thing. So I think this is something that certainly has transformational potential, and probably we're in the very early stages of it. They say what you're seeing now compared to what you'll see in 2 years is going to be very different and even more effective. So I think it's really hard to know. Of course, there are optimists who feel like it's going to make everybody much more productive.
He's very sincere. Like, you can see that he's telling the truth.
He's yeah. Well, yeah, so far we haven't learned anything. Do you want to wrap this up?
I think I'm good with him. I have enough.
This is what happens. This is what happens. Maybe the next live stream can be the result. If that speech comes in tomorrow, then we can watch that speech. The one where he gives the result that we're getting a rate cut, and then we can try to read between the lines on that one.
Yeah, it's very easy to read between the lines. He's lying all the time. Like, he's not giving any clue.
Well, what do you make of that? Like, just saying that he's lying doesn't help anybody watching this.
I think he's underestimating the gravity of the economy in the US and in many places. So when he's blaming the tariff for half an hour, it means there is something, I would say, negative that is coming. Obviously, the economy is not going so well, and he's blaming the tariff. Also, next year, if the economy is collapsing, he will be telling it's the fault of the tariff, and that's it. But he's not explaining clearly anything. Doesn't explain why there is inflation, why there is anything. He's just telling, we cannot forecast, we cannot do anything, and imagine going to work and say you cannot forecast because this happened and this happened. They're gonna laugh at you.
But he's saying that inflation is going to be higher next year. That's what he said. He said it multiple times. So inflation is going to be higher. So what he's doing there is he's saying inflation is going to be higher in summer, which is they're in winter. So that means June, July, August next year, that inflation is going to be higher. He also is blaming the tariffs. And what he's doing there is, if they're going to have the rate cut today or tomorrow, they will do the rate cut, which is going to only make inflation worse. But he's basically telling everyone inflation is going to be terrible in the next 6 months. And he's blaming the tariff.
Why you cut the rate then?
Well, he's blaming well, that's the thing. When you listen to this, they shouldn't have a rate cut. But he's under pressure to do so. And so if he's under pressure to do so for political reasons, then, also think about it this way. He's going to get fired soon, and there's going to be Donald Trump's new pick replacing him. And if
So
he
might
cuts,
lower the rate again, this replacement.
well, no, that would be suicide, because if he so think about this from a political point of view. If he cuts the rates now, and then inflation gets out of control in the next couple months, and then the new guy comes in.
Trump
No,
will
let
blame
me finish. Let me finish what I'm saying. So the next guy comes in, and inflation's already out of control, and the next guy is supposed to lower rates again. That guy he would have a target on his head, because all of society would go after him. He cannot. So what my take on it is, Jerome Powell is going to cut rates now. He's going to blame the tariffs. He's going to say that inflation is going to improve. And then the next guy comes in and he's trapped. The next guy's trapped in a high inflation environment where he's got to increase rates. And Jerome Powell just trapped them. You get what I mean?
Oh, yes. He's giving him the buff.
That's basically that's my take on it. And so he shouldn't be cutting the rates. He should be leaving rates as they are, and he should be kicking the can down the road. And he should, but instead he's going to increase inflation by lowering the rates now, which puts a lot of pressure on the new guy that comes
Maybe
in.
he's giving a little gift to these rich friends that need a cut rate for Christmas and make a bit of money.
I don't know, but it's highly unlikely that the new guy will come in and start cutting again, because that guy would take all of the blame. So Jerome Powell cuts now, he doesn't get in trouble. People are like, yeah, we get a cut. If Jerome Powell leaves it, it's not politically wise to leave rates on hold here. It's, most people are saying we need a rate cut, keep the stock bubble pumping. And so he stays out of trouble. So this is the issue with the Fed. It's all political. He's basically saving himself and face just because. And so basically he's handing over the poison chalice to the next guy that's going to become in charge of the Fed and make a fool of him, technically. And yeah, that's my take on it anyway. I could be totally wrong, but yeah, I think we should probably wrap this up, because it's getting a little bit dry at this point. We've kind of covered everything.
Yes. We're going to look for the result. And
you got a few shorts there you can add, and yeah.
Anyway, guys, thanks for watching today. And we're going to wait for the decision of the Fed. Cheers.
Thank you, Leo.
Thank you very much, guys.